This is Talk Sense Media, your voice of reason in the noise. In today's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the PNP hailing victory for the rule of law. And just in case you're wondering what I'm talking about, here it is. So the Supreme Court of Jamaica recently ruled that the government's repeated and prolonged use of states of emergency, that's SEO, between 2018 and 2023 as a routine crime fighting measure was actually a violation of the Constitution's emergency powers and that it was unconstitutional. And the judges gave their legal reasons for their decisions, basically saying that the reason that the JLP gave was not good enough. It was not acceptable, at least not in a free and democratic society. So the opposition People's National Party had brought the case before the court, and so they have declared the ruling as a major victory for the people and the rule of law. So according to the PNP, this is a resounding victory for the Constitution, the rule of law, and for the people of Jamaica. The Jamaicans, I want to ask you this and answer honestly. Do you feel as though this is a victory? We're going to keep this honest because we have to admit that some communities were badly inconvenienced, and it was painful for a lot of the community members because their movement was restricted by the state in an attempt to restore some sense of order and to reduce criminality, namely murder, robberies, extortion, and gang activity in their communities. But when you consider the fact that Jamaica murder rate was over 1,000, meaning that over 1,000 Jamaicans were being killed each year, I have to ask the question, doesn't that sound like a state of emergency? And also, if the SOE achieves some level of results, don't you think that the end actually justified the means? Because lives were saved. On the other hand, you had some communities, not all, that actually called for the SOE because it was the first time in months that they were able to walk freely, hear fewer gunshots in the community, and they were able to sleep in peace. So it's a serious question that has to be asked. If 1,000 Jamaicans are being killed each year, isn't that an emergency? And if it's not, then what would you consider an emergency? Now I'm going to put my neck out on the block because I don't really think that the judges rule based on how crime was affecting the average Jamaican. But I think they did. They rule based on legal procedures as outlined in the law. And in a court of law, that's their job. If the Constitution was violated, then it was violated. And we have to bear in mind though, that when it comes to crime fighting, there's no one size fits all solutions. Whether it be PNP or JLP, you have to try different tactics until you find one that actually works, one that actually brings results, and then you stick to that one. What's most important is results. We're not talking about statistics here, we're talking about lives. 1,000 Jamaicans being murdered each year consistently. That is reason for concern. Now hear this. As of 2023, Jamaica ranks amongst countries with the highest murder rates globally. Research data shows we recorded approximately, listen carefully, 60.9 murders per 100,000 sentences, which is far above the global average. You know what that is? 5.8 per 100,000 sentences. So for most countries, for every 100,000 persons, approximately 5.86 persons get murdered. Jamaica was 60.9. Now you tell me. And it's like nobody is looking at the cost of crime as well, because it's an economic disaster. Nobody's looking at the cost of crime. What we see happening isn't just a crime issue. It's an economic disaster for communities and for the country at large. From the corner shops that have to shut down early, to the round robins, the dances, the street parties, when all of that vanished from the communities, the opportunity that were provided for man and man to make a money, all of that gone. People's social life get disrupted. People afraid to go out because they don't know what's going to happen, who's going to show up and shoot up the place. And that's just the surface, because here are some other factors what we have not spoken about. Like hospital costs to treat gunshot wounds, the beds that have to be given up to victims instead of sick people. Persons turn up with gunshot wounds, they have to be given bed, they have to get surgery done. It's a cost to the government that we have to pay for through taxes. We also need to take into account the trauma on the youths and the emotional damage that the families undergo because of crime. What the young people are exposed to, it is a problem. So the real question is, has anyone actually calculated the cost of crime in this country? The true cost, financially, emotionally? Has anyone calculated the cost and how it's affecting us as a people? Now when it comes to SOE, we have to remember that's not necessarily the only strategy that they could have employed, but it's what they had at the time. And we also need to bear in mind that it is the government's duty, whether it is green or orange, whether it is the PNP or the GLP, it's the job of the government to protect the citizens. And remember, for most of us, the law-abiding Jamaicans, we don't have government-paid security or armored vehicle to protect us. So who is going to protect us? The community leaders? Things are not the way it used to be. Community members turn against each other, destroying the very community in which they grew. And so if we want better, we have to recognize that freedom has a price. And that price was paid by our national heroes many years ago for us to enjoy the freedom that we now have. And I'm sure as they did, every leader sometimes have to make unpopular decisions that must be made for the safety of the citizens. Let me play the devil's advocate and ask you this. How many of our judges, politicians, or public officials have ever walked into a morgue to identify a loved one sprayed with bullets, closed casket settings? How many? They don't experience that. They hear of it, but they never experience it. Many families have. So let's just be honest and keep the thing real. If 1,000 politicians, judges, or senior officials, or their family members were murdered in 1 year, do you think we would still be debating if this is an emergency? Absolutely not. No way would we be having this discussion, because they would act immediately. The system would shut down. Emergency laws would be passed overnight, and action will be taken immediately to ensure that situations like this never ever occur or continue. So we have to ask the questions, are some lives more important than others? Because sometimes it seems that we in Jamaica, and this is not about attacking the judiciary or their officials. This is about recognizing the massive divide between those who make the rules and those who suffer when the rules fail. And we cannot use rules at our convenience. When it fits us, they talk on behalf of the people, and other times they neglect the concerns of the people. So we have to ask the question no more than ever, Jamaicans, do you really want to live in peace? Because if we do, we can't stay silent when criminals destroy our communities. We can't keep shielding the very people who robs us of our freedom and then turn around and criticize the state when it's stepping to fix the problem, to fix the violence, to fix the crime, to fix the chaos. We have to mature as a people and go way beyond party colors. It must be about what is right and what's needed to ensure our safety and our protection, our constitutional right as a people for safety and protection. And a lot of time we talk about uptown, downtown, but what kind of country are we building if urgency and action only matters when the elites are affected? So while some politicians celebrate victory for what and for who? When families are out there crying, family go missing, turn up DEAD because of crime and violence. So again, we have to ask the question, who really won and what did they win? It's about reducing crime so every citizen of this country can feel a sense of freedom to go through the communities, to come home from work late at night and feel safe going home, not having to be worried about some criminal robbing, stealing, killing them. So there's no victory, and there can be no victory until Jamaicans can walk freely day or night without fear of being another statistics. Because the people who are suffering the most aren't the ones at the top, they are the ones at the bottom, the regular average citizen, the poorest amongst the poor. And until things change, as Jamaica, as a country, we are going to struggle to move forward because of the price of crime and violence. We have to join hands and heart together. We have to put politics aside. We have to look what works in the best interest of the people. And sometimes if we have to amend the laws and the rules to ensure safety and protection for the people, then that's what needs to be done. Somebody have to be brave. Somebody has to step up. Somebody has to take decisive action so that we all can benefit and raise our children in a safe environment that is conducive for good and holistic living. This is Talk Sense Media, your voice of reason in the noise. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and support my channel for more content. Until we meet again, stay blessed.